Okay, well, I'm about probably as tired of Project Saturn X14 as you are at this point. This has gone on a long time. I think it's good for you to see these complex design decisions here, but I also know from a personal standpoint, I don't know that I'd want to sit around and wait for all this time to develop all this. So I try to make this realistic enough to where you can actually use this as a template for your own packages. But at the same time, I can't put so much detail that it just bores people to sleep. So I hope you're getting a lot out of it. I really do. Um, Coming back over here, the final thing that we need to add to our package is when the for each loop runs. Right, that was the final requirement, right? We've done the changing folder and file names, how to deal with multiple files. We've moved it to the archive, and we're making sure not to reprocess a file. So now we just need to have this run when the file arrives. Okay, now that's actually the tricky part. This is actually going to be pretty tricky because we have to work with WQL, or we have to deal with some fake for each file loop iterators here. So let's talk about the idea of how we can figure out when a file arrives. Okay, so we have a couple of different processes here, and I want to just let's do this. Say up here. So techniques to use to watch for a file. Okay, that's kind of what we're doing, a file watcher, if you will. One technique would be to use the WQL event watcher, or sorry, the WMI event watcher task, and you would write WQL Windows Query Language to detect file hitting folder, meaning that it was created inside the folder. Another technique would be to use the for each loop and match on the file name. Okay, and so let's say that we kicked off a package and we gave it a specific file name to look for, and the for each loop came back with no files. Well, then we know the file's not there. If the for each loop has one file in the iteration, the file is there. If the for each loop does not have a file in the iteration, then there's nothing there. And so we would know that the file's not there. Um, Coming down, I messed up and left over here. So number 3, and maybe it's not a line, but so the for each loop would be to use .NET code using the file system. Right, we would just use bring in the system.io namespace, and we could do our own file watcher within .NET and have that run using a script task. Now let me talk about these. What we can do is with numbers 1 and 3. Okay, so with 1 and 3, we could actually have some type of a timer that says, okay, do a 5-minute window, start, or 30-minute window, or a 60-minute window. Kick off the package at 10 p.m. tonight and wait up to 1 hour. If that file doesn't hit that folder within that 1 hour, let's email Scott and let him know, or let's cause an error because we expected it to hit during that time frame. The for each loop down here, this has to be run multiple times. So this one has a very different strategy. And I guess you could do the .NET code for this as well. But the strategy for number 2 in particular would be that I have a SQL Server job, for example, could be a task in Windows, and it runs every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or every 30 minutes. And it checks to find that file. If the file's there, loads it up. If the file's not there, it just simply ends. So which one do you want to do? Which one makes the most sense to you? Well, they're all probably equally useful in various scenarios. And in the interest of time, because we are really at almost the hour mark with this scenario, I'm going to go with number 1. And there, I chose number 1 because it's the one that I would use in the real world for this one myself. It's the one I recently used. And then number 2, it's probably the one that you have the least experience with. And I thought, if you're a .NET programmer, you already know how to deal with the file system, so you wouldn't really learn a lot using number 3. And the for each loop is actually fairly simple, but most people don't know WQL, so I wanted to show you that one. So that's the one that we're going to take a look at in here. So here it is over here in my task list. Here's my WMI event watcher task. So I'm going to call this one look for file. And when it successfully finds the file, it's going to kick off my for each loop container. And then of course I could do a send mail, which we know this is really bogus, but in case it fails over here, then I want it to log an email failure. Okay, that's really what I would do in the real world, but I'm not to a point where I want to show you how to do the send mail just yet. We've got that coming up later in this chapter. So in my WMI event watcher task, let's go to the event options. Let's make a new connection to the WMI. Which server do I want to connect to and how do I want to authenticate? I'm just going to use my local host and do the test. And I need to choose my query. Now this is actually going to be a little bit complex here because you have to know how to use WQL. I'm not here to teach you how to write WQL. There are tools out there that you can use to help yourself write WQL. Microsoft makes several free ones available. I am simply going to just copy and paste from a script file because I don't know WQL other than to be able to look at a query and know what it does. Like I don't know how to write WQL from scratch. I can look at a WQL query and figure out what it's actually doing. So I have in another window, I have something that I can copy and paste in here. And let's take a look at this. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is the Windows query language, WQL here. And what we're looking is we are looking for an instance creation. Okay, when something is created, it fires an instant creation event within the next 60 seconds. Okay, so from the point that we start the package, it will run for 60 seconds. If within 60 seconds a row comes back from this query, it is successful. If within 60 seconds, if at the end of 60 seconds rather, a row does not come back from this query, this task will fail. Okay? So there's our file watcher. It's going to wait for 60 seconds. All right, so I say now where, and what am I looking for here? I am looking that the target instance is a data file, and the name of the file, and I'm hard coding this value in here. Notice the backslash, okay, those are reserved escape characters. So I've actually hard coded that in there. Now, I did this in the interest of speed. In the real world, I would actually push this together with an expression and have that be read from the various variables. So here's my query. It is included in the video. So after the event return with success, if a timeout occurs without finding the file, log the timeout and return with failure. Cool. I'm ready. Okay. That's really what we're going to do here. Let me go set this up. I'm going to move these files out to somewhere else so that when we start up, the import data folder is empty. So let's kick it off. And it's just waiting. You know, how long is it going to wait again? Do you remember? 60 seconds, right? So it's just waiting. This is a file watcher task. And so this file watcher task is waiting for it to hit the file. Well, let's put it in there. Right? We go here, put it in the import data. Now it will not likely be instant that it picks up that the file is there. And let's go ahead and expand this in anticipation of this picking it up. I've seen it take as long as 10, 15 seconds before it actually picks up. There's a polling in here that we just simply have to wait for the polling to find it. So we're looking, we're waiting. Soon it's going to find it. We hope. Cross our fingers. What are we at? 20 seconds now already? Well, let's see. With our 60 there we go. It found our file. It saw that our file was there. Had our files already been processed? Yes, they had, because Scott forgot to delete those out. And then it moved them into the archive. And you can see they're gone from import data. They're pushed into the archive. And when we take a look at our queries, you could see did not reload that data. I hope you got something really good out of this particular package, because this was a very, very complex package that on the surface seems easy. Hey, I want to load up every file in a folder. Well, there are many different business rules that you may have to adhere to, and I've walked you through how to implement these, how to build a package from scratch, and I hope it really helps.